Dilemma. The moment where you hear the phrase, "Honey, do you think that makes me look fat?" And exactly this situation, of course not with maybe specifically that question, can happen when you are a leader in an organization. There's a situation which you consider challenging, and the very first important aspect here is, as soon as you talk about dilemma, often people use the word in the wrong context. Dilemma does not mean you are in a challenging situation. That can be a challenge, a problem, or simply someone has done something wrong, or you've done something wrong, or you have to make a decision and you have many different options and you try to find some sort of compromise or go one way or the other. But that is not by definition a dilemma. A dilemma means something different. And this is why I'm going to explain it with the so-called Heinz Dilemma. And the Heinz Dilemma does not mean if you're going to open another can of baked beans, hello UK listeners, or if you open another bottle of ketchup, hello United States listeners. No, this is not about that kind of Heinz. There is the so-called Heinz Dilemma. And the Heinz Dilemma was written by Lawrence Kohlberg, he's a scientist who published about how moral and ethical standards develop in human beings. So how do morals develop in human beings and society and between human beings? There are 3 different levels with 6 different stages, but that's not the topic of today. We're going to talk about the Heinz Dilemma to see one of the main reasons why people don't follow you is because you act in the wrong way when it comes to a dilemma. People expect something different. And I'm going to first give you the Heinz Dilemma, then a real world example that exactly reflects on the Heinz Dilemma. And then you will see why you have these kind of situations normally a couple of times per week and how you can decide better to be a more sustainable leader. So what does the Heinz Dilemma mean? And I'm going to quote word by word right now. Here we go, the Heinz Dilemma. A woman was on her deathbed. There was one drug that the doctors thought might save her. It was a form of radium that the druggist in the same town had recently discovered. The drug was expensive to make, but the druggist was charging 10 times what the drug cost him to produce. He paid $200 for the radium and charged $2,000 for a small dose of the drug. The sick woman's husband, Heinz, went to everyone he knew to borrow the money, but he could only get together about $1,000, which is half of what it cost. He told the druggist that his wife was dying and asked him to sell it cheaper or let him pay later, but the druggist said, "No, I discovered the drug and I'm going to make money from it." So Heinz got desperate and broke into the man's laboratory to steal the drug for his wife. Should Heinz have broken into the laboratory to steal the drug for his wife? Why or why not? So first, this of course now is a tremendously complex situation, and I hope that you never will be in the situation that you have to decide where you say life or no life for you. By the way, if you think this is not happening today, just remember what happened in certain countries during COVID-19, where with the triage system and due to a limitation on the amount of ventilators available, nurses and doctors were standing there and had to decide who gets the ventilator and who doesn't, which basically means you're actively deciding people you knew, people you know, people you talk to, and you decide who's going to live and who's going to die. So don't tell me it doesn't happen. It just happened this year on this planet in first world countries. But where does it happen in the real world economy? Where can it happen in your situation? But first, there are of course a couple of reasons why you could say Heinz should or should not steal the drug. So let's talk about that first. So Heinz should not steal the drug. So what are reasons which are against Heinz stealing the drug? So of course you can say, well, it's illegal. You can't just break into somewhere because you think I have a right to get that, and I just really need it. So I just break into your store and steal something off you. Also, you could say maybe he steals it, then his wife gets the healing and lives, but he is caught and goes to jail. She might be unhappy, he will be unhappy. Maybe you can talk about criminal records he gets, the job he might lose. Maybe he's the only income of the household, which we don't know in the story, by the way, so don't go to stereotypes about that the man must be the income of the household, please, because she could be the only income of the household, and then of course it's a completely different story again. But you see here, it is really complex. And of course, you can say you shouldn't steal because many people will claim, but well, it's really expensive. Well, don't we have the right that we get compensated for the ideas we have? What does your company do? What does your organization do? Don't you have value creation and ideas? products you sell for multiple times the amount of what they cost in the first place. That's the whole idea of an organization. It's called profitable business. And that's how the whole economy runs. And from this profitable business, you pay taxes, and the whole state and the welfare we have, the healthcare, the education system, everything is based on this system, which is not running too bad in most countries. So there are many ways where you could say you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't break into the laboratory because of X, Y, Z. So, and by the way, of course, when you steal the drug, it could also mean that maybe you just stole the drug someone else needed. So basically, you, even without knowing, killed someone else. Of course, you could, on the other hand, say, well, Heinz should steal the drug because, well, obviously, they are ripping him off. $200 for the cost, $2,000 is the sales price. He even offered to pay in installments, had $1,000 borrowed and lent together from friends, and still the druggist said, no, really bad behavior, and that's why the person sort of, in your opinion, might have deserved that you break into there. Of course, saving lives, that's also a reasonable claim. You can say saving lives is always more important than taking care of the profit of a druggist or a company or a corporation. Maybe people even expect him to do it. Maybe people could have known, oh, he just got $1,000 together, he refused to break into there and then let his wife die. What do they think of him then? So also, of course, his wife benefits from it. And then, of course, you can say life is always in the first place, life is always priority one, etc., etc. And it's just more important in society to take care of life than to take care of profits. All these are reasonable and valid points. And now, of course, you could say, there is no right and no wrong answer. Probably true, but of course, depending on the position because often these are kind of scenarios are used in assessment centers and interviews, depending on the situation and depending on the position you're hiring for, there might be a right and a wrong answer. So when you, for example, take care of someone who works for a non-governmental organization and they are in the social sector and they maybe want to save lives in one way or the other, you might appreciate that someone says, well, when it comes to the point, I am willing to risk my own criminal record, my own safe and sound life to save other people's lives. Maybe you even want that because you are looking for people who are willing to cross the line if they have to. If you're looking for someone leading your compliance department, you might most likely not appreciate when someone says, oh, laws, I don't care, I interpret it my way. You want someone who says, these are the rules and I take care that people stick to it. So you see exactly the same situation, different positions, different points of view. And that's a dilemma. And you see in this situation, there is no chance how you can solve it with anyone and there's no way how you can solve it that everyone is happy. And that is the definition of a dilemma. No matter which route you go down, no matter which road you go down, no matter if you say yes or no, black or white, I want it, I don't want it, we buy it, we don't buy it, we agree on the contract, we cancel the contract, you will never have everyone happy. And that is the definition of a dilemma. And now we come to a real world example. I was sitting together with a leader in a coaching session. And that now, I'm still remembering this because it is more than 10 years ago. In southern Germany, sat together with a senior person in that organization who nearly worked on board level and had some challenges. So we did coaching, which is normal when you wanted to be a good leader. You get normally coaching because you're not born as a great leader. You learn how to be a great leader. So I was talking to that person. Suddenly someone knocks on the door and said, can I just come in? Not ideal, of course, when we're in the middle of a coaching session, but the person asked, can we just do that? Just take 5 minutes maybe. I said, yeah, okay. Shall I leave the room? And the person said, no, you can just stay here. It's not confidential. Okay, perfect. So of course, I'm not going to tell you which company it was or which area they work in, but it was a project. So someone came in and said, okay, here's the problem. We have two projects, Project A and Project B. Project A, we need about 3,000 man days to work through. Project B, we might need about 2,000 man days. And it's, 5,000 man days altogether. But when I take everyone in this company who's available to work for me, basically I only have 3,250 approximately. So maybe 3,300, but not more than that. So we have a lack of 1,750. So what shall I do? Is it Project A or Project B? Which one is more important? A very clear-cut question. And that person, who was a senior leader in that organization, said the following. Well, Project B is more important than Project A, but you have to be sure and guarantee that both projects will be finished on time. And here we have exactly the problem. Because that, of course, is not the decision at all. And of course, we talked about that in the coaching right afterwards. And I said, you didn't make a decision. But personally, I made a decision. I said, Project B is more important than Project A. Yes, but in the next phrase, you said you have to guarantee that both projects are finished on time. And let's face it, even when you try to get additional resources and stretch things and let people do over hours, you can't stretch people from 3,250 man days to 5,000. That is just wildly overstretching. And I know all the theories of goals and stretch goals and super stretch goals, and believe me, they are not adding to good leadership. So the main problem is when you don't make any decisions. So for example, this Project A-B thing we just had. Another problem is when you make a pseudo decision. So for example, you say you support something, but you don't really support it. The sort of co-opting in. So you pretend you are in for something, but you're not really. Just a very reasonable example. A very recent example is the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter movement, when you look on my social media accounts after what happened there, on every single one, exactly afterwards, on every single one of my social media accounts, you find the statement Black Lives Matter or hashtag BLM, because I clearly support the issue. There is a structural racism problem in the US and it has to be solved, and we need to put the attention right there. And many, is it corporates or organizations or any kind of business who put this bland statement out there, which normally sounds like, oh, we are against any kind of discrimination and we love all human beings and we don't support violence and we shall all overcome to make the world a better place. The only thing you avoid is to say the word Black Lives Matter. If you made a statement as an organization or association about the Black Lives Matter issue without mentioning the word Black Lives Matter, your leadership miserably failed. Because what you really try to do is you're trying to pretend to support the issue, but you don't really want to, because you know that you have far right-wing, very conservative clients and you prefer their money over really supporting the issue. And making a pseudo decision also just lets everyone in the organization know that you're not really supporting the matter. Look into the corporate world, look into larger organizations. Many of them have an LGBT network. And as soon as I ask, oh, great that you have an LGBT network and you have 200 members in there, could I just see on the hierarchical pyramid you have? Where are they? And suddenly it becomes very quiet for a very simple reason, because people know that many of the diversity network and the inclusion network are on the lowest fifth of the hierarchical scale. So you support the issue because you know it's fashionable and waving a rainbow flag and Pride Month. And of course, you know that these clients are, if we look into numbers, in many cases not married, or they are married with two incomes. Many of them have no children, so there's more disposable income, and you sell stuff and you want to have their money. Don't you think people realize that? When you do these kind of pseudo decisions, people know that you do not really support the matter behind it. So problem number one, and the main problem, is if you don't do any decision at all, like the Project A-B issue, then you completely lose followership. If you make a pseudo decision, you don't only lose followership, you lose every kind of credibility and social legitimization, because people see you're not only not supporting the issue, it's even worse. You pretend you do, but you don't. Because what you really have to do, and that is the result we need here, I always promise you in every podcast to give a hint how to do it better. Step number one is you make a very clear decision. Yes, no, we do it, we don't. And it's an unambiguously clear decision. Step number two, you act on the decision. So you don't just wait until something happens by coincidence, you proactively act on it. And number three is you make unambiguously clear what are the values of your organization. Because otherwise, all the mission, vision, and value statement, all the inclusion statement and the diversity statement on your website where you talk about how much you appreciate life and all people on this planet, all this, maybe you know these posters you have in your organization all over the place in the elevator so people see it. People will only believe it when you really make the decision, act on the decision, and stand behind the decision. I wish you all the best implementing this in your organization. And now that's only one thing for me left to say. Thank you very much for your time.